Hi everyone, in this episode I'm going to show you how to make keto bread. I find that one of the things I was missing most when I first started was the ability just to have a piece of toast or to have a toasted sandwich. And I don't really like the eggy breads, so this one is yeast free and it's also egg free, so it is vegan as well as gluten free, so hopefully this one you'll love as much as I do. So the first step is to actually mix all your dry ingredients in your bowl. So we have a cup of almond flour. You could use sort of a gluten-free flour if you wanted it nut-free, but at the end of the day, I make this for the keto purposes, and so it needs to be almond flour for keto. That's a cup of almond flour. Then we pop in the cup of ground macadamia, half a cup of the coconut flour, a third of a cup of psyllium husk, before I go much further, I'll just turn on the oven. We need the oven on at 200 degrees, fan forced. So just pop that on. Quarter cup of the white chia seed or chia seed. Then we have a tablespoon of the baking powder. Now I just give that a quick mix through before I add the salt. And now we just pop in a teaspoon of salt. So just mix the salt through before I add those wet ingredients. So you'll see that that's, fairly well mixed through. Just put a well in the middle. And let's add our 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Have 1 teaspoon of the apple cider vinegar. And then we're going to add the water, but we'll add that slowly as we go. So I'll just mix through that oil and the apple cider vinegar. Slowly add this relatively hot. So you need to be able to, you know, put your finger in it. It can't be that hot that it burns. So the psyllium and the chia seeds will absorb a lot of this water, and that's how it binds together. Just keep mixing that round until it becomes a bit sticky. You'll see it is starting to swell. Water. 2 cups of water might seem like a lot, but there's a lot of dry ingredients with a lot of fibrous content, so it does soak that water up pretty quickly, and ultimately will make your bread dense but fluffy at the same time. Okay, so that's now all the water mixed in, and to really get it mixed together well, I think the only way you can really do that is with your hands. Just knock that off. Okay, so you'll see that I do have a bread pan. Now I cook the bread, it doesn't fit the whole thing in here full, so I'll show you what I mean by that. So I just make sure I have my paper ready. So once I've mixed all this bread in together, all the ingredients into the bread mixture I should say, it's ready for me to roll out into that paper, and the baking paper stops it from sticking to the pan. So you'll see it's quite mushy. You don't want to mix it too much because you don't want to knock the fluffiness out of it, but we do want the ingredients mixed together. So it's all well formed. As you can see, as I pull it out, it sticks together like dough. Just get all the little bits out. Now when I cut this, when it's cool enough to cut up into slices, I do like to have a square piece, you know, sort of a bit more like bread, to have a sandwich, or you know, to have a piece of toast, or to have cheese on toast, or you know, whatever you want to use it for really. So I do make it quite high because it will sit down in the pan. So just square it off. Now I don't eat this bread every day, so this does last me several weeks. So once I've got it cool enough to slice, I will slice it and then pop it in a bag in the freezer, and it stores really nicely in the freezer. So we just want to get a little bit of water, and just using this water, just take all the splits out where it splits as you're forming it into your bread shape. So as you can see there, I've got a nice little white loaf. So just forming up the square by using the bench and the weight of the bread. Okay, so there we have our lovely little loaf. Patting the water on the sides and stop it from drying out. Okay, once you're happy with your shape, you can pop it in to your pan just by dropping it in. Hold those paper sides down. And voila! There you have your lovely loaf of keto bread. So from here we pop it in the oven, and it will go into the oven for 50 minutes. Now through that period from 50 minutes to 60 minutes I will keep checking it to make sure that it's cooked through. Sometimes it takes a little longer. Obviously you need to make allowances for your own oven. So that's in the centre of the oven. You don't want it too high, because if you have it too high it will burn. So put it into the centre shelf and pop it on for 50 minutes. So we'll check back soon. Okay, so we have now had the bread in the oven for 50 minutes and we will pull it out. On top, and it's also really quite firm. So what we need to do now is leave this. So it needs to cool for 15-20 minutes in the actual tin. If I get that out now, it will actually start to sag in the centre. So we just leave it in the tin for about 15 to 20 minutes, and then I pull it out and pop it on a cooling rack. And then it needs to sit for approximately 2 to 3 hours on the bench to completely cool before I go and slice it through. It's now been about 20 minutes since we took the bread out of the oven. Just going to now pop it on the wire tray. Now that will need to open it up. That will need to now sit for about 3 hours till it totally cools down before we can give it a slice. But as you can see, it's a pretty good solid loaf of bread. Let's take that out. We'll leave it to cool. Okay, so we'll leave that to cool for 3 hours, and I'll come back and show you when it's all sliced up, well, as we go to slice it. So it's been a few hours since baking the bread, and it's all cooled off. So I just thought I'd slice it for you just to see what it looks like inside. Now with this bread it is quite thick, so you don't need big slices, only really as thin as you can get them. So there you have it, our Keto White Bread slice. Good for sandwiches or toasted cheese, whatever takes your fancy. So hopefully you find it as easy as I do to make and can enjoy some bread as much as I do.